surely Judge Aileen Cannon has run out of ways that she can stack the deck in favor of Donald Trump. No, she has a very important one that she's also throwing at Judge Dearie, who technically is still the special master, but with every legal blow coming from Cannon, he seems a little bit less special and a little bit less like a master. So what he had done, Judge Dearie, was direct Mr. Trump's legal team to sort any documents over which he intended to assert executive privilege into two different categories. Privilege that would shield White House information from disclosure to people outside the executive branch, like Congress, and privilege that would purportedly shield such information from review within the executive branch. Because importantly, and I'm gonna point this out, not because I think everyone watching this needs to know, but I'm just hoping that if like any newscasters or pundits on Fox are watching, they'll learn this. The DOJ is very much a part of the executive branch. And so making that particular broad claim wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. It would not in any way hinder the DOJ from doing this investigation. And so Judge Cannon thought, no, we can't let him do that. Because if he's forced to put it into that category, then that opens up the DOJ to claim that you can't be restraining our ability to look at these. So she sided with Trump. Mr. Trump's lawyers need only say whether something was subject to executive privilege. And if so, to include a statement with a quote, sufficient description of the rationale and scope of the assertion from which to evaluate the merits of the assertion, which has the word assertion multiple times so that you will fall asleep midway through. But also importantly, in the right hands, that might be okay, requiring a sufficient description of the rationale. The issue is that the hands will be hers and she can't be trusted in this. So even if Raymond Dearie expects a sufficient description, what Judge Dearie says at this point arguably doesn't matter because she is willing to jump in front of every legal bullet headed towards Trump's legal team that Dearie manages to put out there. And so everything that he has pushed for seems highly reasonable. But unfortunately, Judge Aileen Cannon has the last say right now. And I don't think that this at the end of the day is gonna stop from us figuring out exactly what's going to happen, but every bit of this delays it, Ben, and that's the frustrating part.
Yes, it does. And it really, again, shows how in Trump's pocket she seems to be, because knowing how Trump speaks and knowing how he's not somebody who's able to discern specifics, and he's not somebody who's able to ever really, nuance is not his best strong suit. So instead of having him have to say specifically this kind of executive privilege versus that kind, it really just feeds perfectly into Trump's general way of speaking, where he's saying all these are privileged. It's kind of like the decision saying, instead of being specific as far as what legally you can claim privilege on, can you just kind of say those are mine, those aren't mine, and that's good enough. She's giving him as broad of a childlike category to say, especially because it's even without merit entirely, because as you may or may not know, those of you watching, a sitting president has to be the one to claim executive privilege on documents. It cannot be done by a former guy. And Joe Biden has not given any of that cover to Donald Trump for obvious reasons. So it doesn't even really matter in the end of the day. And that should be the ruling. Sorry, too late for executive privilege, regardless of whether it's within the executive branch where none should exist or outside where none can exist, because you ain't president no more, homie.
That's just a fact. It might be inconvenient if you wanted to still have these documents. Maybe you should have won the election. I know that would have been difficult. All you would have had to have done is spend a couple of weeks in 2020 pretending like the impending death of hundreds of thousands of our citizens was a bad thing. That probably would have been enough to swing it to you. But anyway, look, there's also.
He's probably about to call the Georgia Secretary of State again and be like, I just need you to find 150 classified documents, okay? They're missing.
Find me 2 more Judge Aileen Cannons. Can we get some cloning going on? Call Elon. Anyway, this is all so blatant, so blatant. And look, I'm not a legal scholar. I know I look like one, but I'm not. But they are weighing in. Jessica Levinson is a professor of law at Loyola, legal contributor. CBS News says it seems being slapped down herself by the 11th Circuit didn't make Judge Cannon any more circumspect. No, it seems to have only inspired her to greater depths of corruption. Empty Wheel is well, that's not actually the person's name. That's their Twitter name. A national security and civil liberties reporter, former federal prosecutor and legal analyst, says Cannon is basically jumping up and down on a scale that her special master is supposed to still own. It's hilarious, corrupt, shameless, and obvious. Although Renato Mariotti, who's also a commentator on legal affairs, says this is just a minor win because now they don't have to essentially disavow their claims that evidence was planted and all that, but it doesn't change the essential issue, which is that he stole documents. And I do agree with that. But again, you don't have to change the fundamental facts necessarily. Delaying could be its own win, especially if it affects the outcome of the midterms. I mean, that is the gift that will keep on giving for literally years at that point. That is the major win. And so that's my worry right now, is that she can be shown to be corrupt and all that, but that might not save us in the end.
True, but also the only saving grace we still have is that Trump is a child that can't keep his mouth shut, and he keeps incriminating himself just constantly in interviews on Fox and on Truth Social, and telling us that, oh, I put those documents because I was allowed to. Oh, I put those documents, and less repeating the planted thing. Which, can we start more aggressively using his current statements on things to continue as evidence? They don't use that enough in Jan 6 either. They in the committee, they're like, well, he just again today said I will give full pardons to. I will strongly consider giving full pardons to all the Jan 6 people who, by the way, you didn't give when you were still president and could have done, so you're full of it. But the fact that you're still saying publicly it is morally okay proves it again. You are still now trying to overthrow our democracy. That should be all the evidence you need, that piece alone. So all of these things, each time he says, I can declassify it with my mind, Sean, as soon as that's debunked, guilty. Let's start getting the process sped up a little bit here on account of obvious facts that are being admitted in the public square.
For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.